I'm delighted this morning that I'm going to be joined by James McVeigh. James is the head of innovation and marketing for Festivals Edinburgh, which is the mothership of information around all the festivals that are going on in Edinburgh throughout the year. But let me turn over to you, James, because we're coming up to August, and August is this huge festivals month like no other around the country or the world. And so can you tell us what the visitor to Scotland can look forward to being able to get involved in August?
Yeah, Camilla, it's great to be here and to speak to your listeners as well. So yes, August is quite an incredible month here in Scotland's beautiful capital city, and it's good to think about August as splitting in two. Okay, just think of it like that. At the beginning of the month, three festivals take place. They run throughout the month, but they start, and those three are the Edinburgh International Festival, the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, and the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo. And let me just say a little bit about each of them. So the Edinburgh International Festival is actually the festival that began everything here in Edinburgh. It was set up in 1947 after the Second World War when Europe was devastated, and was really a peace project to bring nations and peoples back together again. In fact, it was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize a few years later. And that those values remain the same to this day. That idea of bringing peoples and nations together in joyful celebration. It's really a hand-picked program of the finest performances in dance, opera, theatre, and music from around the world. Okay, so that's the International Festival. The Edinburgh Festival Fringe, which I believe you've had on podcasts before.
Yes, we've had all of you. We've tried to join up with all of them, and now you're helping us get the whole lot.
I'll hopefully give the overview. But yes, some of your listeners may already know about the Festival Fringe, but it's to say that it is the largest arts festival in the world. It has about 3,000 shows in about 300 venues all across the city, all across any one particular day. It's actually different in the International Festival in that it's an open access program. In other words, nobody controls the entirety of it, and anyone can put a show on. Camilla, you could come next year and you could put a show on. Nobody can stop you. You just register with the Fringe, and that's why it's also seen as one of the world's great places of creative freedom of expression, because it's really open access. So that's the Fringe. And then you've got the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo, which again, I'm sure a lot of your listeners know. And it's actually at this moment, the arena is being concluded. So we build a purpose-built arena just outside the Edinburgh Castle. It seats about 8,000 people a night. And I always think of it as a theatrical extravaganza. You know, sometimes the words don't translate with people, but actually think of it as a theatrical extravaganza with music, song, dance, incredible projections onto the castle.
Wonderful.
In an evening when the nights go down, the fireworks come at the very end. And it actually is, for the Scottish diaspora, it's one of those moments throughout the show where the hairs on the back of your neck go up at various moments. The particular moment I love is when the arena goes dark and suddenly the lone piper appears on the castle ramparts playing a lament. It's spectacular. So those are the three festivals that start August off. And then, and I'll just go the other three.
No. Please carry on.
I'm on a roll. I'm on a roll. And then about 9 or 10 days later, those three festivals are joined by three more. Okay, the Art Festival, the Book Festival, and the Film Festival. So again, I'll just give you a quick line about each of them. So the Edinburgh Art Festival is actually the UK's largest annual festival of visual arts. And it's got three key strands. It commissions new work, it has a program for emerging artists, and it showcases all the gallery exhibitions that take place across the city. It's actually a feast of the visual arts within that August period. The Edinburgh International Book Festival is the world's largest literature festival. with hundreds of thousands of visitors engaging with the world's greatest and emerging writers, thinkers, and artists, all focused around the written word. Again, programs throughout the day, mornings, afternoons, evenings, book signings, book interviews, debates. It's very much a great place for stories, words, and ideas. And then finally, we've got the Edinburgh International Film Festival, which is the world's oldest continually running film festival. It was actually formed in 1947 at the same time as the International Festival, but just a few weeks later. And it premieres and showcases films from around the world, but also in particular from Scotland. As each of our festivals do, they each have a route into the cultural sector within the country. And there's a big development in the last couple of years with the film festival, which is through the late, great Sean Connery. The Sean Connery Foundation is now funding a lot of programs, especially for new talent, at the film festival. So that's August.
So tickets for events. There is a central ticketing situation, isn't there? Or that's only for the Fringe. The Fringe gets all these shows and has a central box office. So you can try to navigate, which is quite a thing, where you want to go. Because taking 1 second, Edinburgh is very busy in August. And so we need to remind everybody that you need to plan out your day, your navigation of the city, because you're probably going to be on foot a lot. And I've made mistakes where I've been at the Pleasance courtyard and thought everything was there, but it's actually over at the other Pleasance, the other side of the city. But where do people go? Can they come to your site as Festivals Edinburgh and then link out to the others?
Yes, so that's a good way of doing it. Yes, and the website for anyone that wants to use it is edinburghfestivalcity.com. But each of the 6 festivals I've listed, they each have their own box offices.
Right.
So if you want tickets for shows, you go to each of those, but it's all online. You can purchase your tickets online, but Camilla, you're entirely right in that in planning this out, because we've got thousands of shows every day. Think about that every day. You need to be planning not just when you're going, but how you're going to get there. You're entirely right.
It is, yes, flat shoes.
Yes, and sometimes even I do what I'm about to say, which is you double book. You sometimes find that you're going to so many shows that you tend to double book because you've forgotten, I've got a show already at 10 o'clock that morning or 6 o'clock that evening. But footwear, if for those that are able-bodied, good shoes. Forget about the fashion. We've always said, forget about the fashion, good shoes. Because that'll allow you to get around town. But it is planning out. The one thing I would say to people, though, is don't pack your day. Because one of the beauties of Edinburgh, we think, during festival time, is that idea of discovery. You might actually end up going to a show that you were not planning on because somebody might have told you about it.
And they're not all in theatres. That's the other big thing. Yes. They're in the basement of places. They're in the rehearsal room within a theatre because they've now made 4 spaces. And you walk along the road and you go, wow, what's that comedy show? What's that that's going on there? I love that.
So again, you're referring to the Fringe. So I would say that when you talk about the Edinburgh International Festival, because it's the handpicked program of the finest performances, they're primarily in the cultural venues that exist in the city year round.
Yes.
If you're talking about the Book Festival, it's in a particular location, all in a particular location, as part of the University of Edinburgh. The Tattoo's got its arena. So it's the Fringe that is all these pop-up spaces. You know, last year I saw a show on the back of a motorbike, where you pulled on the helmet, and actually there was the person who was driving the motorbike was speaking into your headset of your helmet, and as we drove around the city, they were narrating a story. So the reason why these things happen is a lot of the artists who appear at the Fringe, they're not invited to perform. they're choosing to perform, so they pay most of the costs themselves.
Yes.
So if you're paying all the costs, you're not going to hire the biggest theatre in the world. You're going to try and find an interesting experimental space to put it on.
And that's why you also have such great street performers going on, because they're trying to augment their income, but also promote their show.
Exactly. And one of the little things that if people are in the city any day in August, it's a little insider tip. If you gather at the back of St. Giles Cathedral at 10 o'clock each morning, they do a random lottery draw for the pitches for the street performers. Because everybody wants the key pitch, but it would be unfair to give it to somebody all the time. So they do a random draw every morning.
That's fabulous. But now tell me, so we've had an exhausting August, but we have got another 5 festivals at least, the major ones that happen in the rest of the year. What ones should we also look at?
Yeah, and the reason we talk about these other 5 as well as the 6 is they have what we call this international element. So they are distinctly Scottish, but fiercely international. Okay, so I'll just walk you through those other 5. So around Easter time, we have the Edinburgh Science Festival. So
Right.
this, when it first happened in 1989, it was the world's first science festival. And people wonder, why did the world's first science festival happen in Edinburgh? Well, it's because of the Scottish history of science, engineering, and innovation. So it made sense for such a festival to be here. And so it's got an incredible program for children, but also for adults, very in-depth conversations and talks, but also what we call social science, socializing with science. This idea that you might like a night out where you think you're not learning something, you're having a good time, but actually science is all around you. And so an example of that would be the science of cocktails. Why does gin mix with tonic in a scientific way? And then you get a chance to sample the cocktail. And also, one of the most popular shows in the last couple of years is Cheeseology, the science behind cheese. So there's lots of different things in the Science Fest that make it quite an interesting one. That's around Easter time, so kind of March, April.
Right.
At the end of May, we've got the Edinburgh International Children's Festival, which is primarily for children, but very interesting for adults as well, and for families. It's for children, but it's not childish. Okay,
Got it.
the production standards are as good as anything at the International Festival. The subject matter can be actually very challenging, but this is a deliberate way in which we are trying to get children to talk about issues that could be difficult. And it is, when we say children, we try and break it down into different age groups, because a child at 12 is different than a child at 7. So we have shows starting from 1-year-olds right the way up to 16-year-olds. Exactly. I see your face. Let me just say that the shows for 1-year-olds, they're not text heavy. It's more about sensations. But this
What
is
a wonderful thing for the parents.
yes,
What a
yes,
wonderful thing for families. This
yes.
is fantastic.
Totally. It is I must admit that one of the things I do when I go to some of these shows is I like to watch the audience, because the hardest audience in the world is the children's audience. And so if you've got them captured, something's going well on stage. So I am always interested to see if the children are enjoying it. So we've got science, we've got children, and then in July, just before the August extravaganza, we've got the Jazz and Blues Festival.
Oh, great.
So
and when does that take place mainly?
it usually takes place around mid-July.
And in venues throughout the city?
Again, it's the UK's largest independent jazz festival. It takes place as about 110 concerts in venues around the city. We're actually at the minute just building in St. Andrew's Square in the new town a Spiegel tent, where a number of the shows will take place. Spiegel tents are, by the way, Spiegel is German for mirror. And so you've got these incredible circular theaters, all covered in glass and mirrors, which are beautiful at night when the lights are bouncing off them. And so all around the city, there's music in some of the big venues, but also some pop-up venues as well. Jazz and blues, everything across jazz and blues, even coming up into more modern ideas of kind of funk and soul and whatever. It covers everything.
Right.
So,
And then next.
and we've got two more after
Good.
summer. After summer, going into the October period around Halloween, we've got the Storytelling Festival, the Scottish International Storytelling Festival, which takes place around the city, but is centered around the world's only, as far as we are aware, purpose-built center for storytelling, which is connected to John Knox's house on the Royal Mile. It's a beautiful space, beautiful venue, but it's tapping into the whole idea of oral tradition of storytelling. So it's telling a story face to face, eye to eye, in the old traditional sense. And that's as much for adults as it is for children, because we all love a good story. And so then we love a good story, especially when most of your listeners will know it gets dark in Scotland in the autumn and the winter. So as the nights are drawing in, this whole idea of gathering together to tell a story is beautiful. And so then we come to the end of the year, or the beginning of the year, depending which way you're looking at it, and we got Edinburgh's Hogmanay. And obviously Hogmanay is the name for New Year, the Gaelic term that we use for New Year. Unlike other cities, this is not just about the single midnight moment when fireworks go off. We build a 4-day festival around that moment, which begins with a torchlight procession through the town.
Which I have to say is spectacular.
Totally.
Fabulous.
It's beautiful. And you can watch it, or you can take part in it. You can hold a torch. Kids love doing that. I'm not sure their parents love them holding these flaming torches, but it's an old Viking tradition. And so we do it within the city. Then we have the big street party and concert in the gardens around the 31st. And on the 1st of January, we have a free music trail across venues in the city, so that people who are here, who are visiting, or residents as well, can actually do something on the very first day when they're making New Year resolutions. We want to say to them, make your New Year's resolution about cultural discovery.
So James, Festivals Edinburgh are a partner with these 11 festivals to help them get the central marketing out. Well, is that a good way of putting it? Because some of these I never hear from, with all due respect, because we're over here in the States. And so we're the second tier of their focus. So you're taking care a lot of the international outreach too.
Yeah, but I think that the first thing says, so Festivals Edinburgh is actually a company owned and run by the festivals themselves. So about 15 years ago, they decided that they needed to work together more effectively in certain areas.
Great.
And so they formed their own private company, and that's Festivals Edinburgh. And the company does a number of different things. One is marketing. Other things are things like exploring new technologies, looking at the carbon impact, all these different things that are best done together rather than separate. And so we try to build on the 4 lines that we say are part of the unique selling proposition of Edinburgh's festivals, and that are world leading festival city. And world is internationalism, leading is innovation, festival is experiential, and city is authenticity. And that's all the messaging we do, that's all the programming, that's all connected with one or different elements of all of those things.
This is so wonderful to have met you now, and to be able to come to you, I hope, at different times throughout the year to catch up and find out. But what I haven't done on this call, and I'd love to do maybe in a couple of weeks' time, prior to the closer into the Fringe, to Festivals August, for want of a better word, is find out your favorite picks, and maybe to help people as they navigate.
Well, I do have the picture, the different brochures just to hand. We've got so many brochures. And so There are lots of exciting events going on. As you can imagine, if we've got 3,000 shows, there's a lot of good things on offer.
Well, why don't I give you a challenge? We'll catch up with you again in next month, and let's hear from you about your top picks.
Yep.
And help us as we navigate, because that is one thing that I hear from so many is, how do I work this out?
Yeah.
So it'd be great if you could give us a few little pointers.
And I think the Fringe is the hardest to navigate. The others are quite simple, really, but the Fringe is the hardest. And the key point I would always say to people is find an entry point, and that is, what are you interested in? Genre, the type of show.
Right.
And then there may be a venue that's connected with that in a big way. There may be critics or artists that you like to follow them, see what they say. So there's different ways in. It's a bit like if you're into wine. How do you get into it in the first place? Where's your starting point? Rather than being blinded by the whole thing, just concentrate on an entry point.
All right. So we'll think about our entry point. We'll go to your site and review what our options are, see what's going on, and then we'll catch up with you so we can understand what the next step is for our journey in August. But also, I have to say, the idea of the jazz and blues sounds fantastic. So we'll also be back in touch with you, because we want to carry some news around that. That sounds great.
And Camilla, if you're in touch with any of your listeners and your listeners have questions, I'm more than happy to do a Q&A as well.
Well, that would be fun to do. We should maybe look to the next one to be a webinar, so that they have the opportunity to talk to you and ask you some questions. That would be great.
Okay.
So thank you for joining us today, James.
Pleasure.
Speak
pleasure.
soon. Good morning, and I am so delighted that I'm joined today by Jason Barrett, who is the CEO of the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo, who took over the leadership 2 years ago, and great things are underway already, I see, because the reports from last year were fantastic. I wasn't there last year, I was there the year before, but I'm very much looking forward to being there in a few weeks' time. So, Jason, could you tell us a little bit, first of all, about the history to the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo?
Yes, absolutely. So we're 75 years this year, which is a momentous occasion, which we're so excited about. So 75 years ago put us at 1950 was where it started. And it was a tribute. It was called Something About a Soldier. And it was part of the wider festival fabric of Edinburgh at the time, which the Edinburgh International Festival started, I believe, the year earlier. And all of these festivals came out of the privations of World War II. Whilst World War II ended in 1945, much of Britain was still in recovery and needed a lifting of its sort of national spirit, if you will. And it's where the festivals were born, and it's certainly where the tattoo was born, in order to bring more respect, more engender good spirit towards the military, and that's what the tattoo was founded on.
And that is really what this year's theme is all about, which is fantastic, because we've had voices and wonderful themes over the last few years, but this really brings you back to center.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Camilla, and I appreciate you underscoring that. It really is about that, and we thought long and hard about what would our 75th be. And with our new creative director, Alan Lane, who we're thrilled this will be his first show, he and I talked about a bit of a salute to service, which I think, again, is something that we should all reflect on. And how could we make the 75 something like that? It is with that we came up with an homage, if you will, towards heroes, the heroes who made us, and heroes big and small, the heroes who came before all of us here at the Tattoo that made the Tattoo what it is today. And we'll be able to sort of show reflections of that through our projection of the footage from the tattoos in the past, but also the heroes in our military, which is an Army lead this year, and be able to honor the end of World War II 80 years ago, but also just reflect on, again, a salute to service in the military. But wider than that, this is about everyday heroes. This is about the heroes of every day we run into, small and large. And we have a tribute going out there where we have nominations that have come into the company of these everyday heroes, and we will be able to pay tribute to them in our projection, but also every single night we will acknowledge one of these everyday heroes.
Oh, I think that's just fabulous, because it's sometimes the smaller projects, the smaller messages that make such a huge impact. So apart from the British military, do you have some Commonwealth and other visitors joining you?
Yeah, I can go through a little bit of some of the visitors. I have the list up right here. And it is, again, we're really thrilled with some of the participants this year. I think at the highest part of this list, which is a group, a military band, which we've tried for several years, but they've been a bit busy, and that is the Ukrainians are coming. And the Ukrainians in the Naval Forces Orchestra will be here. And so we're thrilled to have them and honored to have them. We're also going to have the Polish come, which is another band which we haven't had for quite some time. So we'll have the representatives of the Polish Border Guard here, which will play a feature within this sort of the end of World War II. The Peace That Followed is the name of that performance. And so because they were so instrumental in working with the British and working with the US, particularly in Operation Market Garden, we'll be able to feature them as well. Then, of course, we'll have the Yanks. We always have the Americans come every year. We're really thrilled for the very first time, I believe, to get the U.S. Army Fife and Drum Corps, which is one of the most elite military bands in America. And then returning will be the U.S. Air Force Honor Guard, who like to throw their guns around, which is always very, very thrilling. So yeah, I think that makes up most of the the international acts. And then a crowd favorite, of course, are the Swiss with the Top Secret Drum Corps. They'll be back as well.
Oh, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the projection, which I think is such a stunning part of the whole thing, is the projections you have onto the castle. So is that lights, or is this now going to be more of a theme, as you were sort of intimating, of different past tattoos?
Yeah, I think it's something, certainly since COVID, we've really focused on investing in some of the technological, some of the production elements of the show. We always get wonderful acts and they do amazing things on the Esplanade. But in order to elevate our production levels, we went out and found best in class when it comes to lighting, sound, and projection. And when you have the backdrop of Edinburgh Castle as your canvas, you can do amazing things. I mean, it's beautiful as it just sits there in the sunset. But for us to be able to use it as that backdrop with our state-of-the-art projection really elevates the show. You may recall from last year's show, whether you were there or you saw it on the BBC, we were able to transform the Edinburgh Castle into the Taj Mahal. And so we will have new features this year with projection to tell our story about the heroes.
And I know that your plans don't just center around Edinburgh. I read the other day that your plans are really moving ahead for Australia now.
Yes, yes. We've been there before. 2016, we were in Melbourne and in Wellington. And then in 19, there was a show in Sydney. But yes, we're going back. And we're really excited about that. We will this time be in Brisbane. So we'll be in Queensland, which are doing amazing things with their attracting of entertainment and sport. Of course, they have the Olympics in 2032, but they really worked hard to attract us to come to Brisbane. So we'll be at Suncorp Stadium in February of 2026, and then from 4 shows. And then from there, we'll go across to New Zealand. And this time we'll be in Auckland, and we'll be at Eden Park for 4 shows. And so very, very exciting for us.
Absolutely fantastic. I mean, there is nothing better than going to the tattoo. It's such a central piece to everything. But you've got to dress warmly because it gets a bit chilly up at the top of the castle at night.
Yeah, yeah, it really does. I think what was it? The saying here in Scotland is there's 2 seasons. There's July and winter. And there was actually a night last year where it was August, of course, because it's a tattoo, but it felt like November. So yeah, you have to, it depends on the evenings, but it can be bloody cold and windy because it's one of the highest points in all of Edinburgh.
And I never knew, as an aside, that it is on top of it's volcanic. It's a volcano brought us this wonderful mound, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. If you think about all the iconic features throughout the world, and certainly Edinburgh Castle has to be one of them, with its 3,000-year-old heritage, and the fact that it is built on a rock that is a volcano, again, just adds to the folklore of it all, doesn't it?
It does. Well, I'm looking forward. I have my tickets. I'm coming in August, and I'm very much looking forward to this. And I think it's wonderful that we're honoring our heroes in such a way at this, the 75th anniversary, and everything that's been happening. So thank you so much for joining us and for letting us know. And we're telling people that they can get special tickets for the rehearsals right now. So this is all, the countdown's on.
That's right, it is. No, it won't be long now. And we really look forward to having you, Camilla. So thanks so much for having me on. We're excited to welcome you back. And yes, tickets continue to be on sale at edintattoo.co.uk. And yes, we do have our preview night now for sale as well. So looking forward to having many of your friends from America coming over, and many members of your organization.
Well, we look forward to seeing you. And thank you for all you do for us during Tartan Week. We love it that you come over and you're a part of all of that. Thank you. So
yes,
see you
you're
soon.
welcome. We love it. Great.
Thanks,
Camilla. Cheers. Bye-bye.